The government is grinding to a halt over the SAVE Act, a bill making it illegal for non-citizens to vote, which is already illegal. When pressed under oath, FBI Director Kash Patel couldn't give a single number on how many non-citizens have actually been convicted of illegal voting. Himes supplied the answer himself: 77 cases in 24 years, according to the Heritage Foundation. That's the crisis. 77 people in a quarter century, and it's shutting down the United States government.
I'm going to recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Gabbard, as was well covered yesterday in January, you were present at the execution of an FBI warrant at the Fulton County, Georgia election office at the direction of the president and to all appearances in connection with the president's false claims about the 2020 election. The unsealed affidavit submitted by the FBI made zero reference to foreign powers or outside interference. I don't want to relitigate the reasons why you were there, but I do want to know whether, as a result of your visit, there is credible intelligence in your possession pointing to foreign interference in Georgia in the 2020 election.
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member. As you know, over each of the previous elections, there is an ongoing effort by different foreign entities.
Ma'am, it's a very specific question. Is there intelligence in your possession relative to foreign interference in the 2020 elections? Very simple, straightforward question.
We are continuing to look at previous attempts to interfere in our elections and any ongoing threats that may exist for the upcoming elections.
Okay, but can I assume that the answer to my question is no, that you have no specific intelligence related to foreign meddling in the Georgia election?
We are continuing to look into this matter.
Okay. Director, the ODNI has confirmed on the record that your office took custody of voting machines from Puerto Rico last May. I'm not aware of any previous DNI taking similar actions. Did your office promptly notify the committee about taking custody of Puerto Rico's voting machines?
I don't believe we did. However, this was done at the request of the Puerto Rico AUSA attorney.
Ma'am, it's a yes or no question.
The
answer, as you have acknowledged, is no. You did not inform the committee about the taking of a territory's voting machines. Is there a specific foreign threat? And I've read the reporting that you were looking for possible foreign threats, but is there a specific foreign threat that drove you to take this action?
There were questions about whether or not there were vulnerabilities that a threat could have taken advantage of, and that was the purpose for their requesting us to look into those vulnerabilities.
Where are those voting machines now?
I believe they are held in a secure facility at ODNI.
Have you or other ODNI officials taken any other state or territory's voting equipment into custody?
Not to my knowledge.
I want to turn, in the subject of elections, to a paradoxical thing. You will all be aware that the U.S. government is apparently going to grind to a halt. The president is going to sign no more bills. The Senate will spend 2 weeks apparently debating the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, of course, would make illegal foreigners voting in U.S. elections, which is already illegal. So we are to do no more business because of apparently the existential threat to our democracy associated with foreigners voting in our elections. I am therefore puzzled by the fact that neither the unclassified nor the classified threat assessment makes any reference to risk or danger associated with foreigners voting in our elections. Director Patel, how many non-citizens have been convicted of voting in U.S. elections in the last 10 years?
The conviction stats are with the Department of Justice. I defer to them on that.
You are the director of the FBI. Give me a guess. How many convictions in the last 1 year, 5 year, or 10 year? Ballpark.
I don't have that with me, sir. Again, it's with the department.
You don't have that with, okay. Director Patel, how many active investigations does the FBI have into foreign individuals voting in U.S. elections?
We have a number of investigations, generally speaking, ongoing about individuals across the country.
Yeah, I'm asking for that number.
I don't have that number with me, but I have a number of them.
You have a number of investigations. Okay, is that number 10,000? Is it closer to 10,000 or closer to 10?
It's probably somewhere in between.
Okay. Will you please provide the committee with that number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Director Patel, since you don't have the numbers, would it surprise you to know that the Heritage Foundation, which is not exactly the Columbia University Faculty Lounge, found only 77 instances of non-citizen voting in the 24 years between 1999 and 2023, each of which faced investigation by the appropriate authorities. So Heritage has a number of 77 examples in 24 years. Does that number surprise you?
No, because it's low.
I don't understand your answer.
You asked me if I was
Are you
surprised by that
disputing,
number.
are you
I'm not.
disputing that the number is in the range of 77 examples of non-U.S. citizens voting in U.S. elections in a 24-year period?
I just said that number's low.
You think that number is low? Okay. So why, if this is a meaningful issue, do we have no, and I guess I direct this to Director Gabbard, why is there no mention of this thing that will grind the American government to a halt for a 2-week period in the worldwide threats analysis?
This annual threat assessment was shaped around the national security strategy's prioritization of threats to our nation and our nation's interests. There are multiple platforms and venues where there have been and there will be reporting on threats to our foreign threats to our elections.
There is a number in this hearing that should end every conversation about non-citizen voting in American elections, and that number is 77. 77 instances of non-citizen voting in 24 years, between 1999 and 2023, according to the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, not a liberal think tank, not the ACLU, not the Brennan Center. The Heritage Foundation, the organization that has spent decades advocating for voter ID laws, election integrity measures, and conservative policy priorities. They found 77 cases in 24 years. That is roughly 3 cases per year in a country where hundreds of millions of votes have been cast. And that is the crisis that is about to shut down the United States government. The president is going to sign no more bills. The Senate is going to spend 2 weeks debating the SAVE Act, which would make it illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections, which is already illegal, has always been illegal, is punishable by fines, deportation, and prison time. The law already exists. The problem, if you can call 77 cases in 24 years a problem, is already being handled. Each of those 77 cases was investigated by the appropriate authorities. People were prosecuted. The system worked. But that's not the story the administration wants to tell. The story they want to tell is one of crisis, of existential threat, of foreigners flooding the polls and stealing elections. It's a story that requires ignoring the actual data, the actual investigations, the actual convictions. It's a story that requires shutting down the government over a problem that doesn't exist. Himes starts with Gabbard, asking about the Fulton County Election Office raid, the one where she was present, the one tied to the president's false claims about the 2020 election. The unsealed affidavit made zero reference to foreign interference. So Himes asks, is there credible intelligence about foreign interference in Georgia in 2020? Gabbard's answer is a masterclass in not answering. She talks about ongoing efforts by foreign entities. She says they're continuing to look. She says they're looking at previous attempts and ongoing threats. She never says yes. She never says no. She just keeps talking. Himes presses. Can he assume the answer is no? Gabbard says they're continuing to look into the matter. That's not a denial. That's not a confirmation. That's a politician who knows the answer but doesn't want to say it out loud. Then Himes moves to Puerto Rico. The ODNI took custody of voting machines, never informed the committee. Gabbard admits they didn't. She says it was at the request of the U.S. attorney. Himes asks if there was a specific foreign threat. She says there were questions about vulnerabilities. Not an answer. Then Himes turns to Patel, the FBI director, the man who is supposed to know how many investigations his agency is conducting. How many non-citizens have been convicted of voting illegally? Patel defers to the Department of Justice. Himes asks for a guess, a ballpark. Patel doesn't have that with him. It's with the department. Himes asks for the number of active investigations. Patel says they have a number of them. Himes asks for that number. Patel doesn't have that number with him. He has a number of them. Himes presses. Is it closer to 10,000 or closer to 10? Somewhere in between, Patel says. Somewhere in between. That's not a number. That's not even a ballpark. That's a non-answer delivered with the confidence of someone who either doesn't know or doesn't want you to know. Himes asks him to provide the number to the committee. Patel says yes. Then Himes drops the heritage number. 77. In 24 years. Does that surprise you? Patel says no because it's low. Himes clarifies, "You're not disputing that the number is 77? Patel says he just said the number is low. That's not a dispute. That's an acknowledgement. The FBI director, the man who would be in charge of investigating non-citizen voting if it were actually a widespread problem, is not disputing that the total number of cases in 24 years is 77. He's saying it's low, which means the FBI director, under oath, has essentially agreed that non-citizen voting is not a widespread problem. It is, in fact, extremely rare, almost non-existent, a statistical anomaly. So why is the government shutting down over it? Why is the Senate spending 2 weeks debating a bill that makes something illegal that is already illegal? Why is there no mention of this existential threat in the worldwide threat assessment? Gabbard's answer is that the threat assessment was shaped around the national security strategy's prioritization of threats. That's a fancy way of saying it's not actually a national security threat. It's a political talking point, a way to distract, a way to grind the government to a halt over something that doesn't matter, so no one talks about the things that do. The tragedy here is not just the waste of time and money, it's the cynicism. The administration knows non-citizen voting is not a crisis. They have the data, they have the investigations, they have the FBI director who can't name a single number because the numbers are so small they're embarrassing. But they're shutting down the government anyway, because the base demands it, because it's good politics, because it's easier to fight a phantom threat than to address real problems. Himes ends his time having done something rare in congressional hearings. He got the witnesses to admit, through their non-answers and deflections, that the crisis they're using to shut down the government doesn't exist. Gabbard can't point to any intelligence about foreign interference in Georgia. Patel can't name a single number of convictions or investigations. The Heritage Foundation, not exactly a liberal organization, found 77 cases in 24 years, and the worldwide threat assessment makes no mention of non-citizen voting because it's not a threat. It never was. The government is grinding to a halt over a fiction, a made-up problem, a solution in search of a crisis. And the people who are supposed to be protecting the country from actual threats, foreign interference, cyber attacks, terrorism, are sitting in a hearing room, under oath, unable to answer the simplest questions about the crisis they've been tasked with solving, because there's nothing to solve, there never was.